you're watching this video, you're probably gonna be hit with a lot of confusing, cringy things because I just in general am a really cringy person. So this video is an assignment for my college English class, and I'm trying way too hard on it. You also did say for the assignment that we're supposed to be entertaining as our purpose, and if there isn't anything more entertaining than me rambling for about 5 minutes on whether or not I know how to read, then I don't know what is. So today I'm going to be talking about high school, and you're probably going to think that this is going to be the stereotypical, oh, she was in high school and she hated it, yada yada. Although, as like everybody has probably experienced senioritis, and everybody probably was in that mindset of, I have to graduate high school. What would a memoir be if it wasn't somebody complaining, right? It kind of seems like every time we remember something, it's usually the more negative things than the positive things. But I want to challenge that and try to think of everything in a positive light, whether it be something that's inherently bad or not. And from that negativity, I think that we can actually learn something a lot more valuable. I think high school definitely had its ups and downs when it came to my own mental health, how much I compare that ability to play my music. Son of a... Fuck. Oh. Dragging. Behind. No. I think that just goes to show how much work I would put into playing my instrument mentally, at least. I think about the amount of stress and anxiety that came with these auditions and came with playing music. I've also had to work on myself in and out of that spot countless times. I think that I certainly come to fall back to that, and I feel like, especially when I reflect on the anxiety that I had my freshman and sophomore year of high school, it reminds me of what I'm going through now, and the fact that I have worked myself out of that multiple times just shows that I'm probably going to be okay now. You know, and every single time I made a mistake or anything, I remember dwelling on it and ruminating on the idea of making a mistake as the perfectionist that I was. But looking back on it, I've kind of realized what good actually came out of those mistakes, whether that be learning from it individually or being patient with myself enough to keep practicing even though I am frustrated, because I am able to learn from my mistakes instead of dwell on them. When I eventually got to my audition, I actually did a lot better than I thought. I remember being so intimidating by my band director. Now that I'm in college and out of the band, as a student at least, I've come to recognize that same band director is more of a friend and more of somebody I can actually confide with when it came to these anxieties, even when back then I was genuinely terrified of him because of his judgment. And it honestly seems really weird to think about that now. If I could go back to that moment, with my audition, I would probably have done better, because my mentality now is able to recognize that the intimidation I faced was from me and myself. It wasn't from anybody else. It wasn't from anybody else's judgment. It was my own judgment and my own expectations that ended up running against myself. Now, they say practice makes perfect, but being a perfectionist isn't worth it. There was a lot of good that came out of the mistakes and the things I was struggling in. There were some good things that came out of that. Not just that audition, not just my confidence, but I started writing my own music, and I eventually had the courage to actually do something about it. And that's where I am now. I think, wow, like some of this is actually good. Some of this is stuff that I would use now. But looking back on it, my mentality at the time was, oh, this is no good. Oh, I'm not going to be able to do this. Oh, this, oh, that. And if I would have just engaged myself and been patient with myself, I could have made something really good out of it at the time instead of waiting now, because funnily enough, there's no time to not be patient. As ironic as it might sound, the sooner that you're patient with yourself, the better it's gonna be. When I think about it and I reflect, I realize that I've learned how I need to take more advantage of the time that I have with myself and begin enjoying the process of struggling and working through the lows in order to get to the highs instead of plateauing and ending up in a place where I just don't like myself because of who I think of myself. Perfectionism is overrated, and being patient with yourself ends up yielding a lot better results than having unrealistically high expectations for myself that honestly nobody could practically meet. I think if there was anything I would have done differently in high school, it was to care about myself more instead of caring about what other people thought. Going off of that, I feel as if I was left self-critical, I would have gotten more done. It would have been better critique for me to focus and be patient with myself than to constantly throw myself down, as ironic as all that might sound. And, I hope that although this memoir wasn't necessarily on a specific event or one thing that happened in my life, I wanted to try to make it as positive as possible because there's something to learn out of everything, and if you're not learning other things, then you just end up being socially awkward like I am right now. I think the best way to dismiss this video is to end it by saying that there's no time left to not be patient with yourself. Be impatient with the fact that you're not being patient with yourself. Because as soon as you are more patient with yourself and less of a perfectionist, things get better for you and you realize that the people who end up ditching you, the people who didn't care about you, they weren't going to. You'll realize that the person you thought you liked, who you thought liked you, is really wouldn't have worked for you because you deserve more than your own self-critique. So that's all I'm gonna say about that. I'm trying my best, and that's all that really matters in the end. Anybody else who happens to be watching this, I doubt there's gonna be much, but I guess be patient with yourself is the moral of the story. Usually, if I were to record a video or something like that, it wouldn't be as serious as this, but hopefully I can look back on this in a few years and reflect in a more positive light than only reflecting on my mistakes. Yeah, thank you. Adios.